So within our organization, we use multiple communication channels that require us to use text and text language in order to communicate different things. One of the most popular channels that we use is Slack because of its encryption technology and because it helps to keep our information secure and because of its integration with multiple platforms. However, what we're about to go through as far as texting and texting standards should hold true in every communication channel that we use. Texting is not simply like just writing any text. It is a communication where we're actually speaking to one another through the form of text. So one of the things to really keep in mind is the language of your text. For instance, using all caps might sound like you're screaming at somebody. But then again, using a sentence that doesn't have all caps and then encapsulates or puts in bold a simple concept might mean that you just want to draw emphasis to it. At all times, monitor the way that you text, monitor your language, text in full sentences as if the person does not understand everything that's going on. So I've got an example here. We're going to go into Slack and we're going to get very functional and we're going to show you into one of our channels for Qosil and understand exactly how that might go. So let's switch over. Now this is our typical channel inside Qosil. As you can see, I don't want to give an entire background on Slack per se, but I do want to show a little bit more about how we would communicate. Here's a great example where we have an integrated channel inside of Slack. That means that we have Jira coming into Slack, and the things that we are doing in our management program are now showing up inside of our communication channel. One of those things is about the focus on the actual thing that you're talking about. For instance, let's just say that we're here and Abdullah Ahmed has this monitoring and tracing application to QCloud QoS 142 ticket. Now, it might be something that he sees it and he just simply wants to write inside the channel. Well, that's inappropriate because when we don't know what a thing is related to, then it's irrelevant. It makes no sense. So instead of doing that, we want to always use the features within any texting that allow us to focus in on the specific topic and create a thread around the topic we're talking about. So for example, we're here creating this. I can just simply say, I have started working on this and I will get back soon with a possible solution. Now, one thing that's important is to make sure that you review what you wrote. Now, I misspelled possible here, so I should go back and correct it. Spellings, communication, professional communication is necessary at all times. It's also important that we have put a clear message in. Now I'm going to receive this message on my telephone. It's going to say, I have started working on this and I will get back soon as possible. What are you working on? I have no idea. I can come into the thread and find out, but it's probably a little bit better if I say, I've started working on the monitoring and tracing for QCloud. And I'll get back soon with a possible solution. That's a lot better, right? The other thing to understand is, even though we work in multiple environments in different countries, the language of our organization is English. We do utilize other languages so that we can communicate with our customers and our vendors and our partners that are in the field so that they can understand us better. But all inter-office, all inter-employee communication is done in the English language. That ensures that we have consistent communication throughout every single portion and there's no misunderstandings that are caused because of a lack of communication in a language or the other, or we're spending most of our time just translating information. So that's very important. So back into our Slack and back into our example. So now that we have this here, we also need to understand that the integration doesn't work that way. So the other thing is to pay attention to any kind of integrations that are inside of Slack or any other communication platform you're using. If it's email, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing by connecting a Google Doc or connecting another doc to create proper links. If you're connecting something that has a link, make sure that someone has the proper permissions to what you're connecting them to. So in here, if I'm going to actually use this, I can send a comment directly into Jira. So let's do that. I received the ticket, and I see that you are on it. Okay, so in this case, I called it a ticket instead of referring back to the actual item. But why would I do that? It's because I'm aware of the context. I'm aware of where this is being seen, and that's a huge one. To be aware of where your information is being seen at is significant. Is the user going to look on a telephone? What application will the user actually see it in? In this case, hitting comment went directly into Jira under its comment section, and I know for a fact that the user will never look at that comment without seeing the ticket in front of them. So I know that just making a reference to the ticket is significant and sufficient. So last but not least, one of the things that we want to think about when we're texting is we want to use whatever available features are there to then take our text and make references to the proper persons. So when we're using a multi-person texting platform like Slack, we want to ensure that we're using things like hashtags, @ to call people in. We should be mindful that in things like Slack, we have texts that go out through notification systems through other multiple channels. And we should be mindful, once again, of the context. Where is that going to be seen? Who's going to be seeing it? So forth and so on. So let's use another example again. So knowing that this is Slack and that a person can see this both on their telephone, knowing that they can see it on their computer screen, knowing that they might be pulling up a tablet or something else in order to see this information, then I need to be mindful of exactly how they receive it. I also need to call the proper people into the channel. There's 4 people in this channel here. So if I want to make sure I reach Dula, I want to make sure I'm mindful that he will get an update when I post him right now. So I can say, I think that this will not be so hard because you are awesome. And that goes to that too. Our environment is an excellent, and let me say the last word because it's so important, an excellent family. So in our communications, one of the main things to also remember is to communicate like you would to a family. Every communication does not have to be rigid. We have no obsession with titles. There's no reason to refer to any managing director or executive or otherwise as His Honor, His Excellency, although it is appropriate to use proper terms like Mr. and Miss when appropriate, and basic terms that are relevant to that person. But as a rule of thumb, we don't have any standing concepts about accelerating people based on their title in text communications. So that's about it for texting. Those are the rules that you really want to follow. Remember context above all else, and remember to use the tool and remember the platforms that you're talking on, and always adjust your language appropriately. Do that, and you'll text successfully within our organization without ruffling any feathers.